Hi everyone. So this week I wanted to focus on what Adler would say about social media's impact on our sense of belonging. And so I read the articles that the rest of the class did on belonging, and I also read a few others on social media. And so I will be discussing two particular articles. One is called When Your Smartphone is Too Smart for Your Own Good, How Social Media Alters Human Relationships by Lori Wagner. And the other one is The Impact of Social Media on Professional and Personal Lives, an Adlerian Perspective by Jesse Fleck and Lee Johnson Migalski, I believe. After reading about all this in these articles, I have come to the conclusion that my personal opinion would be is that Adler probably wouldn't have a super firm yes or no on social media, and if it has like a super detrimental effect on us or if it's super beneficial, it kind of depends on how you use it. So I do think, however, after reading this research and just these concepts, that he would say that social media cannot bring about the same types of feeling of belonging that face-to-face interaction and face-to-face relationships can. And I think he would have us as a culture be very careful to make sure that we're not putting social media in front of in-person relationships. And so here's why. So from Adler, we know that the fundamental motivation of a human being is the need to belong. And I work at a private practice, and I work with a good majority of teenagers. And so I have so many conversations about social media, which is why this spiked my interest and I wanted to look more into it, because their primary form of communication is social media or technology or their cell phones. Specifically Instagram and Snapchat is how most of them actually communicate. It's weird for them to even think about like calling somebody on the phone. I'm not saying that all of them, but most of the ones I worked with have. And so this has been a really interesting dynamic than working with people who are older, because communication is just very different. Also, sorry if you can hear my kids in the background. So this topic is very interesting to me. And so I personally have always thought that social media and smartphones were just hurting people's ability to make strong connections, and that people are actually feeling more lonelier now than ever before. Sorry, my kids. So Lori Wagner's article spoke on this as well, and I thought that this was really interesting. She talked about how humans are innately social creatures, and we all have these things called mirror neurons. And so these mirror neurons inside of us help us to feel and experience somebody else's situation as if it were our own. So essentially, mirror neurons help us experience empathy. And we need all 5 of our senses in order to experience that type of empathy, to be able to see somebody crying and to see their body language and that kind of thing. It helps us to tap into empathy. And so I believe that empathy is a critical part of feeling connection and belonging. And I think Adler would agree to that as well. And so if you don't have your 5 senses to be using with somebody because you're just on your phone and you're just seeing their words, you're not seeing their body language, it might take away from that connection. So that's one point. Lori Wagner also discussed how having our smartphones is such a distraction when we are with other people, and you have probably seen it before. I know I have, where you're out and about and people aren't even talking to each other, they're all sitting on their phone. Or maybe you have tried to have a conversation with somebody and they aren't talking to you, they're actually just sitting on their phone. And so even if you know that they care about you and love you, it's still hard to not think, hey, what's on their phone is more important than me. They clearly care more about that. And so that's not really cultivating that sense of belonging that we need. And then finally, Lori also discussed that there is a major concern in our youth not learning how to have conversational skills. And conversation skills are learned. And so they may not know how to initiate or carry out conversations. And this is so important in order to feel like you can really get to know somebody. And again, if these skills are lacking, there's a decent chance that a person will end up feeling isolated and alone instead of close to somebody or feeling like they belong they might not know how to even belong. And so this is another thing. One thing I noticed with a lot of my clients is that they rely on their gaming friends. And I don't know if you know a whole lot about the gaming world. Some of you probably do. Maybe some of you don't. It's really big. And essentially these teenagers play these games over the internet and with people, a lot of them that they've never actually met in real life. And that's how they fill up this need to belong. And so I don't think it's always a bad thing, gaming, but I do believe that sometimes they don't actually have in-person friends, or not many of them, and they just have all their friends in their games. And so it's not really pushing them to get out there and actually try to have conversations with people and to learn some of these skills that they need to have. And so many of these clients do actually lack those social skills. And so their gaming is a sense to help them overcome that feeling of inferiority that, like, they, in real life, they do feel inferior. They know that they don't have those great social skills, so they can go to their games where they're good at, not only are they good at their games, but they have people who want to play with them. And so that sense of belonging is very strong. And so I do believe that Adler, I think, from what I can tell and from what I've read, that he would have some concern about that we can't replace, again, in-person relationships with like virtual friendships, essentially. So far I've made it sound like social media and technology are a very bad thing. And I think if it's not used carefully, it really can be a kind of a harmful thing. But the question does come down to, is it better to connect online with people than to not connect at all? And so, as Jesse Fleck and Lee Johnson Migalski stated, social media can help reach isolated individuals or rural communities. And so this can be really great for people who want to join things like grief support groups or read blogs or chat rooms to connect with other people that they just wouldn't be able to at home. If you live way out in the middle of nowhere, you don't have that kind of stuff would be really, really hard to get. And so in that case, it's awesome to have social media and to have the ability to connect with people online. And so all that to be said, clearly face-to-face interaction has dynamics to it that cannot be replaced with online communication, in my opinion. A true sense of belonging may not be discovered through social media, and so I think Adler would want us to fight for our younger generations, and like my generation. I know that this is an issue for me. I find myself on my phone a lot. But to make sure that we're still learning not only conversational skills, but how to have empathy and to truly connect with people so that they can feel like they belong and that we also feel like we belong. When they feel like they belong, we do too. And just in general, have more authentic and vulnerable relationships. And so it's both. It's how you use the social media. Social media has its time and place to be useful, but it can't be in place of in-person relationships. So yeah, that's what I thought. Thanks so much.